I do feel like my dad treats me differently compared to the boys, especially when it comes to rules and supervision. He even jokes with King about becoming a father someday, but when it comes to me, the tone is completely different. That moment you just heard was Deja Harris, T.I.'s daughter, speaking emotionally on camera. She wasn't hurt by something a stranger said. She was reacting to something her own father shared publicly on a podcast. When she found out what he had said, it changed their relationship in a way that couldn't be undone. To really understand why Deja ended up so upset, you have to go back to November 2019. That's when T.I., whose real name is Clifford Tip Harris, appeared on a podcast called Ladies Like Us. He was sitting there with his wife, Tiny, talking casually about parenting. People expected a normal conversation, maybe some funny stories or advice. Instead, what he said shocked almost everyone who heard it. During the interview, T.I. started talking about his daughter Deja, who was 18 at the time. What he described didn't sound like a proud parenting moment. In fact, it made many people uncomfortable. He said that every year, he took Deja to a gynecologist appointment to check her hymen and confirm whether she was still a virgin. He explained it in a very direct way, even saying he would tell the doctor that she didn't ride bikes, horses, or play sports, basically suggesting there was no other reason her hymen would change. What made it even more upsetting was that he ignored the doctor's attempts to explain that the condition of the hymen is not a reliable way to determine virginity. Medical experts have said for years that this idea is outdated and incorrect. But according to T.I., he didn't want to hear those explanations. He just wanted confirmation. As soon as this interview spread online, people reacted strongly. Many were shocked and disturbed. It quickly became a huge topic on social media. Reports said that Deja herself started liking tweets from people who were criticizing the situation, calling it controlling and inappropriate. She also unfollowed her father on Instagram, which made it clear that she was not okay with what had been shared. Her mother, Ms. Nico, also spoke out online, reportedly calling T.I. a narcissist. Meanwhile, doctors and health organizations stepped in to explain why this kind of behavior is harmful. Groups like the World Health Organization and other global organizations had already stated that so-called virginity testing has no medical value. They described it as invasive, humiliating, and emotionally damaging. Planned Parenthood also made a public statement to educate people about the issue. The situation even reached lawmakers. In New York, a bill was introduced to make virginity testing illegal. This shows how serious the conversation became, and how much impact the situation had beyond just one family. Another detail that made things worse was when Tiny confirmed that these doctor visits had started when Deja was only around 15 or 16 years old. At that age, she was still a teenager, not yet an adult, and likely didn't feel she had the power to refuse. That part of the story made many people even more uncomfortable, because it raised questions about control and personal boundaries. For many, this wasn't just about a father being protective. It felt like something much more controlling. T.I. seemed to describe the situation proudly, as if he believed he was doing the right thing. But to others, it sounded like a serious invasion of his daughter's privacy. Eventually, the podcast episode was edited and then removed completely. But by that point, it didn't matter. The story had already spread everywhere. Headlines were everywhere, and Deja's name was attached to something she never chose to share publicly. After the backlash, T.I. didn't stay quiet. Instead, he tried to explain himself. He appeared on Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith, with Tiny sitting beside him. During that conversation, he said that his words had been misunderstood. He claimed he was joking and that people took his comments too seriously. He also admitted that he hadn't realized how it would affect his daughter at first, but later understood her feelings. However, he revealed something important during that interview. He said that after all the criticism started, Deja came to him and asked him to stop talking about the situation in public. That moment said a lot. It showed that Deja never wanted any of this attention. She didn't ask to be part of a public discussion about something so personal. Yet, her story had already been shared with the world, and she was left dealing with the consequences. In the end, this situation wasn't just about one comment on a podcast. It became a bigger conversation about privacy, respect, and the boundaries between parents and their children. And for Deja, it was something deeply personal that played out in front of millions of people. What made this situation even harder to understand was how everything played out afterward. The same young woman who first heard about her private life being discussed in public at the same time as strangers was now the one expected to go to her father and ask him to fix it. That alone says a lot. The responsibility didn't fall on the person who shared the information. It fell on the person who was affected by it. And that imbalance is something many people couldn't ignore. When T.I. later spoke about the situation on Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith, he tried to explain his side. He said he was never actually inside the room during the medical exams and that he only received the results afterward. He also mentioned that these visits had stopped before Deja turned 18. But even with those clarifications, people still felt uneasy. The main argument he kept repeating was that everything he did came from a place of love and concern. He explained that, in his view, there is no such thing as being too protective. According to him, a child is either protected or not protected at all. He also said it was never really about controlling his daughter's virginity, but about making sure she understood how serious that decision is. From his perspective, he believed he was guiding her and looking out for her future. Still, many people didn't accept that explanation. No matter how it was explained, the reality remained the same. A father had arranged for his daughter to be examined by a doctor in a very personal way, and then spoke about it publicly. For a lot of people, good intentions didn't cancel out the impact of those actions. For a while, Deja Harris stayed quiet in public. She didn't immediately respond with interviews or statements. But about a year later, she finally opened up on her family's reality show, T.I. and Tiny Friends and Family Hustle. When she spoke, it wasn't loud or dramatic. It was emotional and honest. She shared that when she first found out about the situation, it was through social media. She saw her name being mentioned alongside words that should have remained private. In that moment, her heart dropped. She didn't even need to read everything to understand what had been said. She already knew. At first, she tried to ignore it and push it out of her mind. That's a natural reaction when something feels overwhelming. But the people around her gently reminded her that avoiding it wouldn't help her heal. Deep down, she knew they were right. Then she said something that really stood out. She explained that she felt like her father treated her differently compared to her brothers. When it came to rules and supervision, the standards were not the same. She pointed out that her dad would joke with her brother King about becoming a young father, laughing about situations involving girls. At the same time, she was being taken to medical appointments to prove that she hadn't been intimate with anyone. That contrast was hard to ignore. It was the same household, the same parent, but completely different expectations depending on whether the child was a son or a daughter. Once she said it out loud, it made people look at the situation in a new way. What stayed with Deja after everything settled down was not just the headlines or the public attention. It was how the experience made her feel. She shared that it left her feeling like she didn't fully have control over her own body. That's not a small statement. That's a young woman trying to explain something deeply personal and difficult. Reports suggested that these doctor visits started when she was around 14 or 15 years old. At that age, it's not easy to question your parents or say no, especially when they believe they are doing the right thing. By the time she became an adult, this had already been happening for years. It had become part of her life whether she agreed with it or not. It was also mentioned that her mother had been present during some of those appointments. That added another layer to the situation, because it meant that the people closest to her were involved in something she later felt uncomfortable about. That's a lot for anyone to process, especially at a young age. When Deja spoke about it, she didn't attack her father or try to tear him down. In fact, she made it clear that she wasn't calling him a bad parent. Instead, she focused on how the experience affected her and what she would want to do differently in the future. She said that when it comes to her own children someday, she wants to be more emotionally connected and understanding. That statement carried a lot of meaning. It wasn't just about the future. It was about recognizing what hurt her and choosing to break that pattern. It showed a level of maturity that many people respected. Deja has also spoken about dealing with depression and anxiety from a young age. While this situation didn't start those struggles, it definitely added pressure. Being at the center of such a public and personal controversy would be difficult for anyone, especially a teenager. Over time, people noticed some distance between her and her father on social media. She stopped posting about him, and that silence spoke for itself. Later on, T.I. admitted that their relationship had gone through a rough period. In a birthday message he shared in 2021, he mentioned that they had faced challenging times but also praised her way of thinking. More recent glimpses of them together suggest that they may have worked through some of their issues. It seems like they have found some level of peace, even if the journey to get there wasn't easy. Healing from something like this takes time, and it often comes with lasting effects. Beyond this one family, the situation started a much bigger conversation. People began discussing who gets to make decisions about a young woman's body, and why daughters are often treated differently than sons. It also raised questions about where the line is between protecting a child and controlling them. Deja's story highlighted those differences clearly. The rules, the expectations, and even the jokes were not the same for her as they were for her brothers. And in the end, she was the one who had to carry the emotional weight of it all. She didn't choose to be part of this story. It was something that happened to her. But the way she handled it, with honesty, calmness, and self-awareness, showed a lot about her strength. Sometimes, the way a person responds to a difficult situation says more about them than the situation itself ever could.